Today we're going to make sourdough monkey bread. Monkey bread is a delicious dessert that has all the goodness of a cinnamon roll, except it comes in bite-sized pieces like this, and it makes for an absolutely spectacular weekend breakfast or an after-dinner treat, or whenever you want to make it, I guess. But because it comes in so many little pieces, it's great for sharing, and it's super easy to make. Let me walk you through on how to make the dough. So the first ingredient we're going to start with is some warm milk. We don't want it to be super hot because we don't want the eggs we're about to put in to start cooking, but we also don't want the milk to be cold. You can use any kind of milk that you want. This happens to be 1% milk, and we're going to put 320 grams or milliliters of milk in there. Next ingredient are 2 eggs. And next we have 50 grams of sugar.
Bye.
2 grams of salt. And you want to be careful with this. Don't put too much salt in there. So it helps to measure out your salt before you pour it in. I'm taking a risk here by doing this, but it worked out, so it's all good. And now what we'll want to do is take a whisk or a fork or whatever you have and just get this mixed together well, mostly to break apart the eggs and to kind of mix in the sugar and the salt with the milk. Doesn't have to be, you don't have to do that for too long. The next thing we need is 100 grams of stiff sourdough starter. Now, if you don't have a stiff starter, don't worry, they're super easy to make. I have a video on it on my channel. I'll link up top here. You can go there and you can use your existing regular sourdough starter to make the stiff starter. So it's not a big deal if you don't have one right away. They're super easy to make. So we need 100 grams of this. And I'm going to just break this apart. You technically could just throw the whole thing in one chunk, but I feel that when you're mixing, it makes it a little easier to kind of evenly distribute it out. And it is a little bit sticky, so if you want to use like a spoon or something, that would work great too. The next ingredient we need is our flour. This could be all-purpose flour or bread flour. We need 565 grams. All right, now we are going to add butter to this dough, but not until we mix it first. So if you have a stand mixer or if you're mixing by hand like me, let's mix this up. We want it to fully integrate together. And at this point, our dough looks like this. If you have a stand mixer, now would be the time to add the butter in. If you're mixing by hand, like I'm going to do here, you would just plop your dough out. You don't need to put any extra flour out. Make sure all of it gets out of the bowl. And then what you need is 80 grams of room temperature butter. Room temperature is key because if it's too cold, it's really hard to mix in by hand. So I've pre-measured this out. This is 80 grams of butter. Now, if you have a stand mixer, this part is easy. You just let the stand mixer do the work for you as far as integrating the butter into the dough. If you're doing it by hand, this is where having the butter be room temperature comes in handy because you just want to push this down and use a bread scraper or a dough scraper to help you knead this dough out. And what I like to do is with one hand use a bread scraper and pull up one of the sides and fold it over and then push down with my other hand. And it's only messy at first just because the dough is still kind of wet and sticky. The gluten hasn't formed very well yet, and we just added in that butter. So once we get going with this a little bit, the dough really kind of comes together. I mean, it's inevitable to get your hand a little bit messy when you're doing it like this, but I find this works the best, especially with these sticky doughs like this. And sometimes I like to just use my hand to push it out a little bit, look for any chunks of butter that I might have missed, and then use my bench scraper to just fold it up like that. Bring it back to the middle, fold and push. I really find this to be quite easy to do compared to other methods of kneading. Now we're just going to continue doing this for about 5 minutes. All right, so it's been about 5 minutes. I'm going to scoop this up and put it in there. All right, so we've got our dough in here. Now it's really just a waiting game. This is a sourdough, so it does take some time to ferment and rise, especially since we added ingredients like sugar and butter. That makes it a really heavy dough, which is why we use a stiff starter, because it really helps with heavier doughs like that. Now, typically people will make these for like a breakfast time treat. That's what I do. And typically what I'll do is I will make this dough the night before. So, after dinner or before I go to bed, I'll make this dough and leave it out on the counter, assuming your house isn't super hot. Leave this dough out on the counter, and then by the time I wake up, it's risen enough to where I can do the next step of this. If you're doing this during the day for like a dinner time treat, I would recommend that you start this early in the morning, around breakfast time, and then by the time dinner time rolls around, it'll be ready for the next step process. So let's let this sit out and do its thing, and we'll come back for the next part. See you then. We're back, and our dough has had a chance to rise up, as you can see here in our mixing bowl. And this next part is the funnest part of this whole process besides eating it, and it's super easy. But to make it even easier, we should set up a little workstation in our kitchen here. And so let me go over that with you. Let me dump this out and go over what supplies you're going to need for this next part. So the first step, of course, is to get a little flour down on your workstation. And we're going to empty this out. And so the next important thing you'll need is a Bundt Pan. We're just going to set that in the corner. And then I have a bowl here of 200 grams of white sugar mixed with 1 tablespoon of cinnamon. And I'm going to set that to the side. And here is 150 grams of melted butter. What you'll also need, but not right at this moment, is some vanilla extract and 100 grams of brown sugar. As far as tools, a bench scraper is really great for this part. If you don't have a bench scraper or a dough cutter, a knife would work just great as well. So this is really easy. What we're going to do is just simply, we're going to cut off chunks of this dough pile and just keep cutting into smaller pieces like this. Dip it in the butter, and then dip it in your cinnamon sugar mixture and just plop it into the Bundt Pan. Now, don't overthink this. The chunks that you cut can be any size, really. I think last time I made this, I got 75 individual pieces, but you can go bigger, smaller, whatever you feel is a good size will work just fine. Don't overthink it. And as you go through, you just want to pile them in like this. You can see them starting to pile up in the Bundt Pan. That's perfect. They can just be loosely, just set them loosely in there. You don't have to pack them down or anything. And once you get the hang of the process, you might find yourself grabbing a handful of these guys and just throwing them into the butter. That is just fine. All right, so they're all in there. They look just like this. Should look similar for you. We're gonna set aside the cinnamon sugar bowl, and with the leftover butter that we have, we're going to dump our brown sugar in there. We're gonna put a dash of vanilla extract or a teaspoon of vanilla extract in there, and let's mix that up. And this is gonna make a very nice glaze to go over the top of these. And just with a spoon, just pour it over the top. Make sure you get around the edges. As this bakes, it's going to seep down in between these monkey breads, and it's going to get to the bottom. It's going to make a nice crust or glaze that is going to be absolutely delicious. So just generously pour the rest of this in here. All right, so here they are right before the oven. You can see there's a beautiful glaze on top of these. We're gonna bake these for 350 degrees for approximately 35 to 40 minutes. What you wanna see is the top nice and golden brown. And I would recommend that you bake this top of a baking sheet, just in case there's any spills, which there most likely won't be, but in case there is, you want that to fall into the baking sheet and not on the bottom of your oven. So let's bake this and come back and check it out. So here it is, the finished monkey bread. We're gonna do one more step before we dump this out and check it out. This is an optional step, but it really puts these over the top. So I've got some powdered sugar here. It's 120 grams. I've got 14 grams of unsalted butter. I'm gonna pour that in. I'm gonna pour in 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract and 2 teaspoons of milk. Now I'm gonna mix this together. This is gonna make just a very simple vanilla icing. This goes great over the top of the monkey bread. I'm gonna thin this out a little bit by adding 1 more teaspoon of milk. Perfect. Now let's dump these out and see what we have. You can see how these just pull apart into nice little cinnamon sugar chunks with a nice brown sugar glaze on the bottom. And then once these have all been distributed, what I like to do is take my icing and just drizzle that over the top with a spoon. If you want to use a piping bag, that works great too. Just a little bit. I like to have little containers of icing so that if someone wants more than this, they can dip their monkey bread into the little container of icing. That way you don't overload people with icing if they don't want a whole lot of it. So there we have it, sourdough homemade monkey bread. All the goodness of a cinnamon roll in a bite-sized vessel. Can't go wrong with that. These are so delicious and so fun to share with people. And I hope you enjoyed this video recipe. Let me know how it went for you in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Happy baking, everyone.